Storm continues to head east, and it's hammering Ontario and Quebec with snow.
We're going to be doing these updates every half hour.
Holy shit!
What would happen if Christmas wasn't about lights and carols anymore, but howling winds like a judgment call? If right on the holiest night of the year, nature suddenly got mad, swallowing people up in ice, snow, and darkness, would you dare believe it's just chance? Or is it a warning that's been sent, cold and unrelenting? Early morning on the 24th of December 2025, while California was still wrapped in holiday cheer, a bomb cyclone from the Pacific suddenly slams into Sierra Nevada. Snow dumps 2-3 feet thick. Winds howl at 70 miles per hour, blanking everything out in a whiteout that drops visibility to zero. Just hours later, Donner Pass, that pass with its bloody history, turns into an icy hell. Over 10 cars pile up on I-80 near Truckee. Traffic backs up for miles and gets stuck. Christmas frozen amid wailing sirens and fear. The accidents don't stop. Up on Echo Summit, cars spin out in the snow. CHP keeps getting crash reports. Power cuts out. Thousands of homes plunge into darkness. Everything hits fast and furious, like time's getting squeezed in the storm. Can you feel the heartbeat of the chaos? Can you hear what the wind's whispering? The Bible once said, "But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pains, when the sun goes dark and order crumbles." Is this just El Niño, like science says? Or a scary repeat of what happened at Donner in 1846? If God's using storms to wake us up, the scarier question is this really just the start? And if so, where's the next nightmare waiting for us, right after this howling wind? Let's join me in digging deep to uncover the real truth about what these chains of events truly mean. Chaos at Donner Pass, the mark of a natural disaster. Something nobody could have imagined happened right on Christmas night. Donner Pass gave way. No warning sirens, no big explosion, just snow and ice pouring down like a cold wall. Winds howling and ripping through the I-80 freeway, and cars slowly vanishing into that deadly white. While the rest of us were thinking about Christmas lights and family get-togethers up on the Sierra Nevada peaks, time seemed to freeze, traffic ground to a halt, and one of California's main arteries shut down in just a few short hours. That Christmas didn't start with carols, it started with pure chaos. It all kicked off fast, almost without a moment to catch your breath. At exactly 12:18 p.m. on December 24, 2025, Caltrans had to order all westbound traffic to turn around at the Truckee and Donner Lake interchange after a bunch of uncontrolled spinouts. You can picture hundreds of drivers stuck there, snow keeping on, falling thick, and the wind starting to roar like an open door. By late afternoon, things had turned into total mayhem. A pileup involving more than 10 vehicles happened on Donner Summit near Castle Peak in whiteout conditions where visibility dropped to zero. Winds hit 70 miles per hour, felt like temperatures down to minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and many drivers were trapped in their cars for hours, unable to move forward or back. ABC 10 reported injuries, while photos from the scene showed vehicles buried under more than 2 feet of snow, looking like they were frozen in time. The backups weren't just one way. According to SF Gate, both eastbound and westbound lanes of I-80 were held up at different times, turning Donner Pass into a complete bottleneck right during peak holiday travel. Over on Echo Summit, Highway 50 wasn't much better, with dozens of spinouts reported by CHP, leading to local power outages that affected thousands of homes in the mountains. Christmas, in an instant, turned into a string of emergency sirens, flashing lights, and feeling helpless against nature. Isaiah 13:13 puts it plain, before the full prophecy, "Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will be shaken out of its place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts." in the day of his fierce anger. Put those words next to what's happening at Donner Pass, and a lot of folks can't help but shiver at how the old description matches this icy reality swallowing the pass. Weather experts jumped in quick to explain the causes. Based on data from USA Today and weather agencies, this blizzard was triggered by a bomb cyclone forming over the Pacific, pulling in heavy moisture and shoving cold air across the Sierra Nevada. El Niño was mentioned as a factor boosting the snowfall and wind strength, while the steep, high terrain of Donner Pass amplified everything fast. From a scientific view, it's an extreme weather event, but one we can understand. Heavy snow, strong winds, and heavy holiday traffic made the perfect setup for chain reaction crashes. Experts point out these kinds of things are happening more often with global climate change, as weather systems get more unpredictable and intense. But as those explanations come out, plenty of people think back to the history of Donner Pass itself. In 1846, a group of pioneers got trapped there in a long blizzard, leading to the worst survival tragedy in American westward migration. Over a century later, same spot, same snow and ice, same isolation, and once again, people powerless against nature. For many, that repeat isn't just coincidence. Psalm 107-25 says it differently, but just as haunting. For he commanded and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. This Bible verse isn't about one particular storm, but it raises a question that makes folks wonder. Are there times when nature isn't just reacting, but allowed to wake people up? Debate sprang up quick because of that. One side says everything at Donner Pass is purely physics and climate patterns. No need to attach any supernatural meaning. The other side looks at the history, the sacred Christmas timing, the level of destruction, and sees these as warning signs beyond a regular storm. Both views sit side by side, not easy to blend. Revelation 16:21 describes, before the full part, and great hailstones, about 100 pounds each, came down from heaven on people, though it's snow, not hail. The image of huge chunks of ice dumping down, burying vehicles and paralyzing a wide area, makes many think of that biblical judgment language. Here, the question isn't right or wrong, but how each person chooses to see what they're witnessing. So what was Donner Pass on Christmas night 2025? A traffic disaster from extreme weather, or a symbolic sign repeating right where a historic tragedy happened? When science and faith both look at the same event, each has its own reasons, and it's up to us to put ourselves in it and think it over. One thing's for sure, Donner Pass sent a signal nobody can ignore. A major route locked down, vehicles stuck motionless in the snow, and Christmas interrupted by chaos. But if this storm isn't alone, if it's just the start of a bigger chain of events moving from west to east, then the next question is really worrying. What's waiting ahead? Now that Donner Pass has spoken up first? Global storm chain, from west to east. If Donner Pass was the first big hit, the scary part is this: it wasn't alone. Just a few days after Christmas, extreme weather started spreading beyond California, like a door had been opened and there was no way to shut it. From west to east, from the Pacific coast to the Great Lakes area, one storm after another showed up with the same cold rhythm, all at once and hard to explain. On December 28, 2025, Michigan took the next big blow. Another bomb cyclone formed and let loose winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour, with snow from 1 to 3 inches in the south, up to nearly a foot in the Upper Peninsula. According to MLive and NPR, more than 100,000 homes lost power in just a few hours. Many roads had zero visibility, and accidents piled up as folks couldn't adjust fast enough to the quick weather change. Almost at the same time, Buffalo, New York, got hit with a different but just as bad scenario. On December 29, an ice storm rolled through upstate, knocking out power to more than 57,000 customers as ice built up thick on trees and power lines. National Grid said they had to restore service to over 70,800 out of 112,000, 300 affected cases, per the New York Times and WIVB. The whole city was covered in a clear layer of ice, pretty to look at, but deadly dangerous. Up north, southeast Canada couldn't escape this mess either. According to Severe Weather ETA, a blast of Arctic air dropped temperatures 30 to 40 degrees below average, setting up blizzard conditions from the Great Lakes all the way to Quebec. Strong winds, heavy snow, poor visibility, and tons of flight and cross-border travel disruptions showed this wasn't just a local thing anymore. Minnesota and Wisconsin added more cold pieces to the picture. The Twin Cities got 5 to 7 inches of snow on December 28, while western Wisconsin saw up to 12 inches, with winds at 35 to 40 miles per hour, according to Fox 9 and CBS. Roads got slippery, accidents shot up, schools closed, and everyday life got squeezed by the ice and snow. The storm chain didn't stop there. New England, from Vermont to Maine, dealt with freezing rain on December 29, building thick ice on roads and power lines. ABC News reported widespread traffic problems from Burlington, Vermont to Portland, Maine, as Maine roads became too dangerous to drive safely. Looking back at the whole thing, it's hard not to wonder, why did it all happen so close together, one after another, in a clear line from west to east? When you watch the weather map, those red and blue spots keep lighting up, like a non-stop chain of signals, making you realize you're looking at something bigger than just separate storms. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." For many folks, those words don't feel abstract anymore when you see millions without power, traffic at a standstill, and that helpless feeling spreading across the northern continents. From a Bible viewpoint, this storm chain isn't just weather, it's a warning language. Ezekiel 38-22 says, before the full quote, "I will punish it with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, fire, and burning sulfur on it." Here, hail, howling winds, and freezing ice show up like repeating signs, giving the sense that a big order is getting shaken on a wide scale. But meteorologists give another explanation, based on data and science models. AccuWeather and other weather agencies say this comes from a shifted polar vortex, combined with an oddly bent jet stream, letting Arctic air pour far south. In this view, the timing is just the result of a big atmospheric system getting out of balance. The two explanations sit side by side. One sees a guiding hand, the other sees complex physical reactions. The Bible calls it signs, science calls it patterns. And between those two names, where do we stand? When millions are hit at once, is this just climate coincidence, or a message repeated loud enough that we can't ignore it? Amos 4-7 gives another picture. "I also withheld rain from you when there were still 3 months until harvest." That's not just about rain or drought. It's the idea that nature can become a reminder tool when people drift too far from staying alert. Put that next to this storm chain from California to Canada, and many feel a thoughtful connection. From a neutral angle, you can't deny that science gives detailed, reasonable explanations for each separate event. But it's also hard to deny that the size, speed, and timing of this storm chain create an uneasy feeling beyond regular weather reports. That overlap is what keeps the debate going strong on TV and social media. So the question isn't really who's right or wrong, but which way of seeing it helps us guide ourselves. When one side talks about the atmosphere and the other about sacred warnings, what convinces you more about what's happening around us? This west to east storm chain drew a cold, straight line across the North American map. It shows Donner Pass wasn't an exception. It might have been the starting point. And if those Bible prophecies about spreading, timing, and human confusion have truth to them, then the next question gets heavier than ever. Is this the whole story? Or is there a deeper warning still waiting to show itself as the darkness keeps moving forward? Biblical prophecies, natural disasters as warnings. After everything that's happened lately, the thing that probably makes us wonder most isn't how strong the storms were, but why they're coming one after another like this. Starting from Donner Pass, that chain of snowstorms spread across the whole country, and what seemed like separate events are now connecting into some kind of pattern. In those quiet moments, amid all the chaos, have you ever stopped to think, is this just the weather? Or is something gently trying to get our attention? Looking at the big picture, these recent events don't stand alone anymore. The blizzards didn't just shut down highways, paralyze cities, or wipe out Christmas. They formed a repeating rhythm, showing up suddenly, hitting hard, then leaving behind emptiness and confusion. History has seen similar times, like the Great Blizzard back in 1888 in America, when thousands died and the young nation really struggled. When you put 2025 next to those old memories, that scary familiar feeling starts to show up. Weather data shows the Midwest got snow up to nearly 2 feet deep along the Great Lakes shores, with wind gusts at 50 miles per hour, over 200,000 homes without power, and traffic shut down across wide areas. New England kept dealing with freezing rain, airports closed, thousands of flights canceled, and the holidays turned into long waits in the cold. Those numbers, read one by one, are just statistics, but put together, they're like drum beats signaling something bigger moving in. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 8, the Bible described those kinds of upheavals with a strange picture. All these are the beginning of birth pains. It's not an immediate end, not instant destruction, but a process. Birth pains don't come to kill. They signal a change, the arrival of a new era after intense contractions. That image makes natural disasters feel less like random tragedies and more like milestones. Snow covering cities in white, winds howling through the night, power going out everywhere. It all acts like a curtain, temporarily blocking the usual light of human life. In those hours of zero visibility, when the sun gets swallowed by the snow, people have to stop and face their own fragility. Matthew 24, verse 29, goes on to paint a bigger scene. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Those words don't sound like a weather report. They're like an ancient whisper, reminding us that the world's familiar order could get turned upside down any time. When snow and freezing rain paralyze a huge area, when gray skies drag on for days, that sun-darkened feeling isn't just symbolic anymore. It becomes something we all experience, where light isn't taken for granted and we're forced to confront our limits. Joel chapter 2, verse 30 adds another layer. I will show wonders in the heavens above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and billows of smoke. In a mystical way of reading it, winds whipping up blinding snow, blizzards swirling like giant white columns, the biting cold air. It all creates a sense of a world being stirred from its foundations. Not every image has to be literal, but the unease they bring feels very real. Here, the Bible doesn't come across as quick judgment. It's more like a slow unfolding indictment. Those ancient pages don't shout or threaten. They quietly raise questions about people's relationship with the divine order they're living in. From this view, disasters aren't just punishment. They're reminders that the world doesn't run completely on human terms. Of course, not everyone sees these events through faith. Many scientists and meteorologists say it's all the result of climate shifts, the polar vortex, misplaced jet streams, and global warming. To them, the 2025 snowstorms, tough as they were, fit into patterns explainable by modern science. No need for anything supernatural. That view has solid ground, and it helps us understand nature's workings better. Science gives forecasts, early warnings, and tools to cut down on damage. But the real question isn't whether science or the Bible is right. It's whether those two explanations have to cancel each other out. Science answers what's happening and how it works. The Bible, in many places, asks why should this make people wake up? One side covers mechanics, the other, meaning. Seeing this string of disasters as a mirror, maybe the key isn't picking sides, but asking, what can we learn from it for ourselves? Revelation chapter 8 verse 5 describes a shaking scene. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and hurled it on the earth. And there came peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. That image isn't just about destruction, it's about intervention. The moment human order gets jolted so people look higher than themselves. In today's world, these snowstorms might not be fire from heaven, but they're strong enough to shake our false sense of security. They remind us that no matter how far technology goes, we're still small against forces beyond control. And in that smallness, questions about faith and humility become clearer than ever. It opens up space for reflection, putting natural events side by side with ancient prophecies, letting each person find their own answers. For you, are these storms just weather cycles, or a gentle but persistent nudge that the world is entering a time of change? And if what's written in the Bible isn't meant to scare, but to awaken, what happens next if people keep ignoring those signs? Maybe behind these snowstorms, a deeper warning is still waiting to be heard, and the door to the next part is slowly opening. A deeper meaning, from chaos to awakening. When the last storms finally die down, what's left isn't just melting snow or roads opening up again, but a different kind of quiet in people's hearts. That's the moment when the usual noises of the world slow down, and folks start listening more to voices they've long ignored. In that stillness, the chaos doesn't shout anymore. It turns into a soft whisper, gentle but persistent, coming from deep inside. From California to Canada, during days of blackouts and cut-off roads, social media was full of stories that were hard to explain. Some folks said they saw shapes like angels in the thick snow. Others talked about a strange feeling of being protected when everything around them was falling apart. Even though each story was personal, they all shared one thing: a sense that people were facing something bigger than everyday life. According to reports, more than 51 million people were hit by power outages, traffic shutdowns, and disruptions to daily routines. But alongside the damage, many communities saw things rare in modern life. Neighbors opening their doors to give shelter, strangers sharing food, and volunteer rescue groups popping up in the cold. Minnesota, where snow piled up 8 to 12 inches deep, didn't just record losses, it also saw communities wake up as people realized they needed each other more than ever. Those scenes bring to mind an old story, far back in time, but one that still carries real weight. Before the world was once swept away by water, the Bible says mankind lived in indifference, busy with their own lives, paying no attention to repeated warnings. Noah's time didn't end suddenly with the flood. It was foretold with long patience, with calls that went unheard. Genesis tells how Noah's ark was built over many years, amid skeptical looks and mocking. The rain didn't come right away. The waters didn't rise instantly. Everything happened slowly, as if to give people plenty of time to think it over. That slowness is what was really frightening, because it put the choice in each person's hands instead of forcing them with immediate terror. In 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9, the Bible explains that delay in a way different from the usual picture of judgment. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. These words aren't about punishment. They're about patience, about the time given so people can change on their own. When you put this explanation next to today's string of natural disasters, the picture gets clearer. These snowstorms aren't wiping out humanity or drowning the world overnight. They come wave by wave, region by region, enough to shake things up, but not enough to end it all. Just like in Noah's day, the world now is living in a kind of before the rain period, where everything keeps going, but nothing's quite the same as before. Romans chapter 8, verse 22, expands on that feeling with a very human image. We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. Nature, in this view, isn't just the background. It's something groaning, reacting to deep imbalance. The howling wind, falling snow, spreading ice, all like sighs from creation, not meant to destroy, but to wake us up. Those visions people shared during the snowstorms, whatever you make of them, reflect an inner need, the need to find meaning in the middle of chaos. Some psychologists say they're just hallucinations from prolonged stress and cold, a natural brain response in harsh conditions. That makes scientific sense, and it explains things on a personal level. But what many can't brush off is how widespread and simultaneous that awakening feeling was. Not just one place, not just one group, but across all the affected areas. Similar stories showed up, like pieces of a mirror reflecting the same question. What really matters when the familiar things are stripped away? The comparison to Noah's time isn't about water or snow. It's about how people respond. When the ark was being built, no one was forced to board. The door stayed open for a long while. The story doesn't end with lack of information, but with choice. And it's that choice that decided fates, not the flood itself. Psalm 46, verse 10, wraps up these thoughts with a quiet invitation. Be still and know that I am God, not fleeing, not panicking, not arguing right and wrong, just stopping. In a world used to speed, stillness becomes the most radical act because it opens space to hear something deeper than stats and headlines. This isn't meant to claim humanity is facing a new flood or that every disaster is direct judgment. It just recalls a familiar Bible pattern. Before every big turning point, there's always a warning phase, a time to reflect and turn back. In Noah's day, there was the ark. In our time, maybe the ark isn't made of wood, but built from awareness, humility, and inner repentance. Hope, then, doesn't lie in disasters stopping right away, but in people's ability to change how they live before it's too late. If these storms are just whispers, then the scary part isn't the wind, it's the silence of those who refuse to listen. Maybe this is the story's final stop, where there's no more howling wind or falling snow, just the heavy silence of choice. Like the ark's door in Noah's time, open in patience, the world today seems to stand at a similar moment. Not closed yet, but not waiting forever. If what's happened is just the first wake-up call, then the question isn't what's coming next. It's who we'll become when the time of grace ends. Because before the real rain pours down, people are always given one last chance to awaken. When we look back at everything that's happened, from Donner Pass buried under that Christmas blizzard, to the chain of chaos spreading across North America, we no longer see these as separate events. They fit together like pieces of a puzzle, forming a bigger picture where nature shakes things up and forces us to stop and face how fragile we really are. This isn't just a story about the weather, it's a story about our times. In that picture, the Bible doesn't feel like some old book from long ago. It feels like a mirror, showing us what's happening right now. Matthew 24 talks about birth pains, not to scare us, but to remind us that big changes always come with warning signs beforehand. These storms, power outages, disruptions, and panic today echo those old warnings, like a steady drumbeat urging people to wake up. When we put these events alongside the Bible's bigger story, from the days of Noah to the prophecies about the last days, we see one thing that never changes. God always warns before he acts. Genesis tells about the ark being built while everyone else ignored it, and 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9 says the Lord is patient, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. So this time we're in isn't punishment, it's grace. That's why the final message isn't about panic. It's about waking up. Waking up to see that these signs around us aren't random. Waking up to look at how we're living, how we're loving, and how we're treating each other. This is the time to pray more, to repent more honestly, and to let faith guide our everyday choices. When each of us changes from the inside, that little light can spread to those around us. If what you've just heard has touched your heart or made you feel heavy inside, let that feeling turn into a prayer. You can leave one down below, a prayer, a thought, or just a quiet word from your heart. Those words aren't just comments. They're signs of awakening, where we lift each other up and help each other stay on the right path. If you feel this message needs to reach more people, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of God's warnings in the videos to come. Every share might be the way you reach a soul that needs waking up at just the right moment. Finally, thank you for taking the time to listen all the way to the end. May God keep you and your family safe, give you peace in these unsettled days, and light the path ahead so we don't walk blindly. May His grace, protection, and love be with you always. Amen.
So we all just got woken up to some disturbing sound all through the whole.
If the end of days isn't coming way off in some distant future, but is knocking on our door right this minute, would you even notice? The world is shaking. The sky's gone dark. The ground's trembling. Strange signs from up above and down below are all roaring out at once, like anger that's been held back far too long. The Bible warned us. The sun will be darkened. The moon will give no light. The powers in the heavens will be shaken. And now it feels like time is speeding up. Strange lights ripping across the sky, tornadoes howling like trumpets, rain pouring down like a tsunami, floods swallowing up bridges and roads, the earth rumbling and boiling, whirlpools opening up deep in the waters, weird creatures coming to the surface, white objects just hanging in the woods. 10 strange events, 10 chilling pieces of the puzzle. You think it's all just coincidence? Those videos going viral, the quick news clips, the rushed explanations. This isn't some conspiracy. It's a series of warnings that God is trying to get through to us. So don't click away. Stick with me as we dive deeper and look for the real answers hidden in these 10 strange events below. We'll get started right away with 1. The flickering lights look eerie behind the dark forest. The video starts with a feeling of unease spreading. A woman stands close to her porch, her voice shaking, with a thick, endless dark forest behind her. No city lights, no traffic sounds, no signs of modern life, just heavy silence. Like nature is holding its breath for something about to happen. Then the sky behind the forest suddenly lights up. Streams of orange, white, yellow, and blue lights keep flashing, not like lightning rhythms, not like fireworks, but shooting across, cutting through the darkness like sharp slashes. The sound that comes with it isn't short blasts, but a deep humming whine that lasts, hitting you right in the chest. The panic shows as the person filming quickly backs inside the house, while the sky keeps flashing non-stop. What makes this phenomenon hard to understand is the setting. A rural area near Pensacola, Florida, right next to thick forest, miles away from homes and any industrial sites. No big power station, no nearby factories, no signs of infrastructure that could easily explain such an intense event. Similar videos pop up here and there online, capturing those strange sounds from the sky. But official explanations always trail off halfway, leaving a chilling gap. Luke 21:25 once recorded a warning. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity. This Bible verse doesn't say what those lights are, but it points to a familiar pattern. When strange signs appear in the sky, people's sense of order starts to shake. The anguish and confusion don't come after a disaster. They show up right when no one knows what's going on. Of course, debates flare up fast. Some say it's just a technical thing, like a power plant releasing pressure, where steam glows and makes loud noise. But that argument runs into tough questions. If it's industrial, why is the area just all thick forest? Why no smoke? No chemical smell? No physical traces left after? When you watch that video again, what do you think is the right answer for this strange phenomenon? Luke 21:26 goes on, "People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world." The fear doesn't just come from the odd lights, but from the sense that something is slipping beyond our usual control and understanding. The Bible here isn't giving a final answer. It's like a quiet hint, putting us face to face with questions about what we're seeing. If the flickering lights behind the forest are just a one-off incident, it'll all fade into forgetting. But if it's only the first sign, a flash warning of a bigger storm ahead, then when the sky starts sounding like trumpet blasts, will humanity still have the calm to wonder? Or just listen in silence? 2. A strange big tornado that looked like a giant trumpet. It wasn't just a regular storm, but a shape that gave folks the chills. A huge column of wind twisting around, narrowing in the middle, flaring out at the top like a trumpet hanging in the sky. That sight made us all stop and stare, because the usual fear of bad weather suddenly turned into something deeper and harder to describe, like the sky was about to make a sound. This happened in Parkersburg, Iowa, a place that's seen some of the worst EF5 tornadoes in history. But this time, what shocked the community wasn't just the destruction, but the noise. The swirling column, hundreds of feet wide, came roaring down, ripping up houses, cars, trees, turning the air into a thick mix of dirt and water. The roar wasn't the sharp howl of strong wind, but deep, long, echoing like a sad trumpet blast, leaving many people standing still, feeling like they were hearing something beyond the ordinary. Weather experts soon explained it. Scientifically, tornadoes can sometimes take a trumpet or mushroom shape because of changes in pressure and unstable spinning airflows. In theory, that shape isn't all that rare. But what kept people uneasy was the sound. Some videos showed a rhythmic, deep, steady hum, not like the usual tearing wind. Science could explain the look, but it struggled with the noise, and that gap started to grow. Revelation 8-6 says, "The 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets got ready to blow them." This Bible verse isn't describing a tornado, but it brings up a familiar symbol. The trumpet as a signal to start something, a sound warning of big, unstoppable change. And when a trumpet shape shows up right in the sky, it's hard not to make the connection. Revelation 8-7 goes on, "The first angel blew his trumpet, and hail and fire mixed with blood were thrown down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up." This isn't some vague hint anymore, but a clear warning about a chain of events that follow one after another. In that story, a trumpet-shaped column doesn't stand alone. It's like the first echo of a dark melody starting to play. You could call this a rare weather event. You could see it as an extreme twist of nature. But when the shape, the sound, and the timing all come together, that old sense of safety starts to crack. We can keep believing everything's still under control, or admit there are signs going beyond easy explanations. If that trumpet blast has already sounded over the Iowa sky, like an opening signal, then what's coming next? While the air still echoes with that noise, a downpour like a flood might just be the next step in a series of warnings getting stronger. 3. Tsunami cloud dumped in seconds. In Perth, Australia. The sky over Perth changed color in just a few minutes. A heavy gray cloud hung unusually low, with no warning, thunder, or long buildup like a regular storm, then suddenly poured down a huge amount of rain. Streets that were dry turned into rushing rivers, catching many folks off guard before they even knew what hit them. When rain can come crashing down in seconds, you naturally wonder, is this just extreme weather or something more unusual? The event was clearly recorded around Perth Airport in Western Australia. Reports from MSN and ABC News said record rainfall fell in a very short time, along with strong wind gusts that ripped off roofs and brought traffic to a standstill. Weather data showed it was one of the most intense downpours ever measured in the area, with water equal to hours of normal rain coming down in minutes. Video clips showed rain falling so thick it looked like a wall of water, often called a rain bomb. The cloud dropped so low it seemed to touch the ground, blocking all visibility. Water rose a few feet in no time, flooding curbs, sweeping away trash, mud, and vehicles. For those watching the news, the usual feeling of a quick, heavy rain soon turned to real unease, because the speed and power of it went way beyond anything we'd seen before. Matthew 24:37-39 says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark." This Bible verse is often brought up to explain history, that disaster doesn't come after loud warnings, but hits when life is going on as normal. In that light, the rain in Perth reminds many of a sudden flood, with no time for people to get ready. From a scientific view, weather experts call this a wet microburst, a blast of cold air dropping straight from the cloud to the ground, bringing heavy rain in a very short burst. In theory, it's a known phenomenon, but what sparks debate is how fast it formed and the damage it caused. In under 5 minutes, a large area was underwater, far beyond typical microbursts described in textbooks. The contrast between the two explanations is clear. One side is science, with terms, charts, and atmospheric models. The other is a symbolic reading, seeing repeated extreme rains around the world as reminders of how fragile our current way of life is. Both views coexist, but they don't fully ease the growing feeling of unease. If the Perth rain is just one data point in climate stats, it'll soon be replaced by the next news story. But if it's a link in a chain of events coming faster and faster, then when the water keeps rising, the next questions won't be about the sky anymore. They'll be about the bridges, roads, and structures we trust to hold up against any flood. 4. The twin bridges swept away by the flood. The footage shakes hard, with water already lapping right at the edge of the bridge. Just seconds later, the whole structure starts twisting and bending right in front of the camera. No background music, no narrator, just the roaring sound of the rushing flood. You probably wonder the same thing. If you'd been standing there, would you have spotted the danger in time? The video was shot on Route 27 inches Maine, showing a pair of bridges built to handle lower traffic in bad weather. But this time, the flood came way too fast. The muddy water surged like a living thing, slamming straight into the supports. In a blink, one long span, hundreds of feet, ripped apart and vanished into the current, forcing cars to slam on their brakes at the last moment. Reports from the Daily Bulldog and Wikipedia's list of bridge incidents say the Brackett Brook area got several times the normal rainfall in just a few hours. Local authorities had to close the road and warn folks to stay away from bridges and low spots. Damage to infrastructure is estimated in the millions of dollars, not to mention the close call with lives, if it had happened a few seconds later. Isaiah 24:19 paints a haunting picture. The earth reels to and fro like a drunkard. It shakes violently and falls, never to rise again. The Bible verse doesn't get into engineering details, but it sure captures that feeling of everything solid, suddenly breaking apart. Watching the bridges go down in the video, that shaking isn't just a figure of speech anymore. It's real, heavy, and undeniable. Some news outlets like KATV say this was just a regular flood hitting weakened foundations. Technically, that's not wrong. But what bothers a lot of people is how fast it all collapsed. With almost no warning signs beforehand, a structure designed to last decades folded up in seconds. Isaiah 24:20 goes on about that fragility, comparing the earth to a hut that sways like a hammock in the wind. In this case, the bridges aren't just concrete and steel anymore. They stand for our trust in things we've built to last. The video doesn't need any commentary. The pictures alone make you think about the limits of what we can control against nature. When the bridges broke in half and got swallowed by the water, the real message isn't in the dollar figures. It's in that helpless feeling that comes through the screen. And if a couple of bridges out in the countryside can go down that quick, just imagine the chaos on busy, icy highways up ahead, with way more traffic. How bad could it get? 5. Cars swerving and crashing all over the highway. Brake lights flashing like crazy, horns blaring through the air. In just a few seconds, the highway turned into a massive wreck. What looked like a dry road suddenly became a deadly sheet of ice. Cars lost control, spun sideways, piled up, and slid around in total chaos. The news spread fast when the first pictures came out. A mountain highway had lost all order because of a thin layer of ice. It happened in the South Carefree area of Colorado Springs, where a sudden cold snap caused ice to form almost instantly. From posts on Reddit and videos going viral on YouTube, dozens of vehicles got caught in a chain reaction crash in just minutes. The road was shut down for miles, and rescue crews had to approach in really dangerous conditions as the ice kept spreading. The videos show sedans, SUVs, even heavy trucks losing control. Brakes didn't work at all. Tires just slid like they were being pulled. One crash led right into the next, not from speeding, but from having no control. In that moment, everyone sees how thin the line is between normal driving and disaster. And maybe we've all been on roads that seemed safe like that. Luke 21:26 comes to mind, like a chilling reminder in that scene. Men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. The fear in that Bible verse isn't just from big disasters, but from that feeling of no control when everyday order suddenly falls apart, just like when those cars started spinning on the ice. Weather experts from weather.com explain it's called black ice, a clear layer that's really hard to spot with the naked eye. Scientifically, the cause makes sense, but debates heat up when comparing it to other crashes, especially that 133 vehicle pileup in Texas that blew up on Reddit. That scale goes way beyond a normal accident and raises questions about weather getting more extreme. Luke 21:25 goes on about signs in the earth. When people get anxious facing nature, black ice isn't new, but the way it showed up so suddenly, thick and widespread, shutting down traffic completely, makes a lot of folks feel like it's not just an isolated incident. Some see it as climate coincidences, others as warning signs about how fragile our human inventions are that we thought were totally safe. Which view makes more sense to you? As the engines died down and the road fell into cold silence, one thing stands out clear. Just a small change from nature is enough to paralyze a whole traffic system. If the highways can turn to chaos like that, then behind every home's door, when floodwaters quietly rise, how much harsher could the next scenario get? 6. The murky water flooded the house. The glass door shattered with a dry crash, and the murky water rushed in like a living creature on the hunt, sweeping away everything in its path. The video shakes wildly, screams mix with the roaring water, and in that moment, we're no longer just watching from behind the screen. We're pulled right into the panic that's swallowing up a home people thought was safe. This happened in Orem, Utah, where quiet neighborhoods turned into flooded areas in no time. Security cameras caught the water rising several feet in just seconds, smashing basement windows, knocking over furniture, and cracking load-bearing walls. What used to be a cozy spot to wind down at the end of the day now turned into a cold trap, and you can really feel the helplessness as everything falls apart too fast to do anything about it. Local authorities kept sending out urgent warnings, their voices tight with worry, telling folks to evacuate right away and admitting the drainage systems were overwhelmed. Rescue teams could only watch from a distance as the water swirled powerfully. Getting close would have been suicide. In those short alerts, there were no comforting words, just the plain truth. People had lost control. Genesis 7:11 comes to mind as a way to make sense of it. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. The image of the springs of the great deep doesn't feel like some old story anymore. It mirrors exactly this murky water bursting up from the ground from places we thought were sealed tight with concrete and steel. Meteorologists push back, saying it's just the result of heavy rain mixed with fast-melting snow, building up pressure that broke the basement structures, a scenario that's totally explainable by science. But facing that explanation is the question about the speed and destructive power going beyond normal, the kind that makes every forecast model look too slow. Between these two ways of thinking, where do we stand? Believing it's all just random weather, or seeing a pattern repeating that's been warned about for thousands of years? The video ends with the house sunk in muddy water, only the roof sticking up in the raging flow. No more voices, just the bubbling sound of the flood. This isn't just some local mishap. It's a stark reminder that floods don't knock, they break right in. And if water's already pouring into individual homes, what kind of horror is waiting ahead when massive walls of water rise up together? 7. Strange boiling water columns in the floods in Washington. In the murky floodwaters covering the ground, strange columns of water suddenly rose up, bubbling and churning like an invisible door underground had just swung open. The scene wasn't loud right away. It was quiet and eerie, making the air feel heavy, like something awful was hiding and not yet ready to show itself. This happened in western Washington, where heavy atmospheric river rains pushed water levels up more than 15 feet in a short time, according to reports from PBS and the New York Times. Amid the rushing flood, the surface wasn't flat anymore. It kept bulging, with columns of water a few feet high shooting up from below, swirling and gurgling like the earth was breathing hard in pain. A dark feeling hung over everything, and it's hard to see this as just lifeless water. Those water columns didn't stay put, they spread out, making nearby areas flood deeper, faster, carrying mud and debris along, twisting the landscape like a bad dream. Witnesses described a slight shaking under their feet, the water making low, muffled sounds different from normal flow. And you can see why the fear came not from what they saw, but from a gut feeling that something was very wrong. Debate started right away. The Seattle Times and some geologists said it was just built-up water pressure underground, with heavy rain forcing pockets of groundwater back to the surface. The science explanation sounds reasonable, but questions came up about the scale and why it was concentrated. Why did this show up so much in one area, right during this historic flood, when it's rarely been seen before? Revelation 16:18 came up like a cold warning. There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a great earthquake, such as there had never been since man was on the earth. So great was that earthquake. Images of the ground shaking and deep rumbles from below aren't distant symbols anymore. They're happening right in the bubbling water in front of us. If science sees this as physical pressure, the Bible reads it as an accusation. The land isn't staying quiet. Nature isn't putting up with it anymore. Those water columns feel like evidence presented, charging humanity with going too far, forcing creation to speak out in the strongest way. The flood will recede eventually. The ground might settle. But the big question hangs in the damp, chilly air of Washington. If the earth has started bubbling and rising up through the water, then when the real deep whirlpools open wide, what will get pulled down with them? 8. A strange whirlpool in the flood. Night fell over the flooded street, and right in the middle of the road, a dark, swirling vortex suddenly formed, like a wide open eye deep down below. There was no open drain showing, no sign of the ground sinking, just the water twisting itself into that deadly center. That moment was enough to make us feel like the line between order and chaos was fading away. The place mentioned is Miami, Florida, where heavy rains often turn the streets into temporary rivers. In the murky water, a vortex a few feet wide stayed steady in a suspicious way, pulling in water non-stop, but the level around it hardly dropped at all. A low, rumbling gurgle came from the center of the swirl, going on for tens of minutes, giving the feeling that something down below was working away quietly, but on purpose, and it was hard to see this as just some random mishap. Experts quickly showed up with the usual explanations. Some said an alligator moving around in the drainage system could cause an odd vortex, an idea that's come up before in local Florida news and online discussions. Officials also warned folks to stay away from flooded areas because of wildlife risks. But this explanation raised a bunch of questions. Why did the vortex appear right in the middle of the road instead of near a drain? Why was there no sign of any animal? And why did it last way longer than a normal creature's movement would? Exodus 7:17 is brought in here like an old, chilling hint. This is what the Lord says, "By this you will know that I am the Lord. With the staff in my hand, I will strike the water in the river, and it will be turned to blood." In the Bible, water isn't just for life. It can become a tool for judgment. When something as familiar as water starts acting unnatural, it's often a sign that something bigger is being set in motion. The debate doesn't stop there. Outlets like West News lean toward scientific explanations, seeing the fear as just a side effect of group panic during floods. On the other hand, eyewitnesses question the growing number of repeated strange events and how the usual rules of water flow seem like they're not working the same anymore. Between these two views, which side would you take? Believing everything can be fully explained, or admitting that sometimes nature goes beyond what we currently understand? When the rain eased up, the vortex disappeared, leaving a muddy road and an uneasy quiet. No clear conclusion, just the sense that the water's surface had opened a door for a moment and then quietly closed it. If this was just a test probe, then when other doors start cracking open all at once, what will rise up from below to face the world above? 9. A strange creature rising up from the mud. Without any thunder or warning, the muddy surface suddenly cracks open, like it's being torn from the inside. A weird shape pushes its way out, long, stiff, dark-colored, like it just crawled up from some unnamed deep hole. Seeing that would really make your heart sink. If you saw it happen right in front of you, would you still feel like the earth is completely safe? This was caught on video at the mudflats near Charmouth Beach in England, and also in Fort Myers, Florida, where folks online call it the mud monster. The camera shakes a bit, the mud starts moving, and then this thing appears. It's not like a clam, and not a familiar nautilus either. Its stiff shape moves like it's on purpose, giving viewers the chills. That moment when the mud splits open for the creature to rise up brings to mind the warning in Revelation 13:1. "And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads." The Bible isn't just talking about a monster. It's a sign of things that have been hidden now starting to show. When the sea and the land stop keeping their secrets, that's never a good sign. Lots of videos spreading on TikTok and YouTube quickly say it's just the body of a cuttlefish or some sea animal washed into the mud. But if it's only a dead body, why does the mud crack open right at that moment? Why doesn't it just lie there, instead of rising up with clear pulsing movements? Those questions make the scientific explanations feel a little weak. Job 26:5 says, "The dead tremble, those beneath the waters and all that live in them." That Bible verse sounds like a reminder that the ocean holds more than just animals. It hides things beyond what we humans can understand. When those things stir, the fear isn't just in our heads. Some geologists say the mud movement could come from built-up gas or pressure changes. Biologists point to dead sea creatures floating up as they decay. But all those ideas avoid one key thing: the uneasy feeling it gives. Witnesses like they're facing something that shouldn't be waking up. Romans 8:22 tells us, "We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time." When the ground stops being quiet, when mud produces strange shapes, it might be the groan of creation before bigger changes. It's not random. It's part of a chain of signs linking together. So, this creature coming up from the mud isn't just some odd thing to watch and forget. It's like a symbol, a quiet whisper that what's been buried is starting to surface, just like the end times warnings we've heard about. And if the earth has begun birthing monsters, then those strange objects hanging in the sky that we might face next, What even scarier message will they bring? 10. A strange object floating in the sky. The final event didn't come with a bang or panic, but with a quiet feeling that's hard to put into words. Deep in the forest, a pure white object was hovering in the air. No wings, no strings holding it up, no signs of any machinery. That sight had a strange, holy feel to it, like a silent message had just been placed in our noisy world. This was spotted in the Guadalajara forest in Mexico, and also in California's Central Valley, where videos show a small white mass hanging a few feet above the treetops. No noise, no wobbling, no movement from the wind. The first feeling wasn't fear, but a sense of reverence, like standing in front of something beyond our everyday world. It didn't look like a bird or a hot air balloon. The surface was perfectly white, with a soft glow, floating calmly as if gravity didn't affect it. When you see something like that, do you ever wonder why it showed up right when the world feels most chaotic? That question creeps in and makes you slow down and think. Matthew 24-30 sounds like the final judgment of our time. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn as they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. The Bible doesn't describe the exact shape, but it stresses that it will appear openly, undeniable, forcing everyone to face the truth. Some observers try to explain it scientifically, saying it's just an experimental balloon, or even labeling it DARPA technology, like Fox News and Reddit threads do. But deep in the forest, with no wind, no tether, and that almost glowing purity, where does that come from? If it's man-made, why does it give such a holy feeling that leaves viewers silent? Hebrews 9:27 reminds us, it's appointed for people to die once, and after that comes judgment. When arguments break out and opposing views clash, what's important isn't just what the object is, but what it stirs in our conscience. To you, is this just a lifeless phenomenon, or a sign that makes us look at our lives again? Many choose doubt to feel safe, but some hearts tremble, recognizing the call to repent is clearer than ever. Luke 21:11 once said, "There will be great signs from heaven, not to feed curiosity, but to warn and prepare." This white floating object isn't just a visual mystery. It's like a gentle but firm reminder that heaven has never been silent. We've just gotten used to ignoring it. This could be an angel's warning, a call to turn back before the door closes. And if an angel appears in broad daylight, how long can the world hold up when the final darkness falls? And we've just gone through 10 events full of the Lord's message. So which moment made you stop and think? Let us know your answer in the comments below. 10 signs have appeared, one after another, not scattered, not random, but lined up in a clear chain, like warning bells ringing out. From the sky, the earth, the oceans, all the way to the dark corners people thought they knew so well, everything is sending the same message at the same time. Humanity is standing very close to the edge. This isn't just a theory anymore, and it can't be called coincidence, because the number, the timing, and the nature of these strange signs have gone way beyond what anyone can ignore. When you step back and look at the whole picture, it's easy to see a cold pattern at work. Nature is angry. The normal order is turned upside down. Things long buried are coming to the surface, and the sky keeps sending unusual signals. Matthew 24:8 once warned, "All these are the beginning of birth pains." If this is only the beginning, what's waiting ahead when the final door opens? Not every sign shouts like thunder. Some whisper softly, light as a breath, but strong enough to wake the soul. Revelation 3:3 reminds us, "If you do not wake up, I will come like a thief." The danger isn't that there are no warnings. It's that people have gotten used to turning their backs on them. In the rush of daily life, the call to repent and get ready often gets pushed to the very bottom of the list. The strongest part of the message comes in a promise that mixes judgment and hope together. Revelation 22:20 says, "He who testifies to these things says, 'Yes, I am coming soon.'" Those few words are short but heavy, like a final verdict. No room for delay, no safe middle ground. Coming soon means the time left to get ready isn't as long as most people think. Now, the question isn't whether these signs are real, it's how each heart will answer them. When you connect these 10 signs together, what do you see? A scary coincidence or a loving call from heaven? If something rises up in your heart, a prayer, a thought you've never said out loud, feel free to share it in the comments below as a mark of faith in this critical time. To make sure you don't miss any future messages, please like, share, and subscribe to not to feed fear, but to stay awake and prepare together. Every interaction helps spread the warning to those still sleeping while the storm is building. Finally, thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who listened all the way to the end. May the Lord keep you and your family in peace, give you clear eyes to recognize the time we're living in, and give you strong faith to stand firm when trials come. Amen.
Oh!
If the world is entering its final days, would you even recognize it? In just a short time, 10 strange events have shaken the earth, one after another. Fires suddenly swallowing historic buildings, the sky torn open by colorful fireballs, oceans roaring as massive whirlpools form, weird creatures crawling out of the ground, glowing, twisting winds, water boiling like it's alive, crosses of light appearing in the night sky, rings of fire spinning in the clouds, clouds turning into terrifying shapes, and birds swarming down in chaos. Are you watching this as just news or as signs? Stick around and let's dig deeper together into the bigger truth that's being hidden. And don't skip any of it, because every bit might be something the Lord wants you to know. And now, so you don't have to wait, we'll get started right away. 1. The flames that swallowed a historic school in Brazil. That fire started without any warning, like a sudden blow to the memories of an entire city. Colégio Marista, the historic school in Santa Maria, in Rio Grande do Sul state, was swallowed up in a sea of bright red flames, with its old dome collapsing in just a few hours. The first images that spread around made it hard for us to look away, because in that moment, you and I both knew this wasn't just an ordinary fire. It was the loss of a symbol that had stood strong through many generations. The school sits right in the heart of the busy city, about 2 miles from downtown, and it had long been tied to the history, education, and faith of the local community. According to the latest news reports, the fire broke out in the main building and spread fast, out of control, forcing hundreds of nearby residents to evacuate in the middle of the night. Thick black smoke rolled up into the sky, covering an area nearly 1 square mile, creating a dark scene like some ancient curse waking up. In our shared memories, many folks thought back to the time when the Statue of Liberty had that accident and part of it collapsed, when symbols we thought were unbreakable started falling one by one. The fire didn't just burn wood and stone. It burned away people's sense of safety. Loud explosions echoed through the neighborhoods, and the bright red glow reflected on the shocked faces of folks standing far away, helpless as they watched. The firefighters worked for hours, but the intense heat made every effort feel fragile. Experts later explained that the cause might have been some technical problem combined with old materials that caught fire easily, but even they admitted the speed of the spread was unusual, beyond what they'd normally expect. Amid all those technical explanations, a lot of people started feeling an unease that's hard to put into words. Because in the Bible, Revelation 8-5 warns, the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and hurled it to the earth, and there came peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Fire isn't just an accident, it's a picture of warning. when things people build with pride can collapse in an instant. Jesus also said in Matthew 24:7, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. These upheavals keep coming one after another, from society to nature, not to scare us for no reason, but to warn about a deeper time of unrest. The fire in Brazil, then, didn't just burn down one school. It burned away the illusion that human values are untouchable. And if this is just the first wake-up call, a warning sign sent through fire, then the question still hanging in the air will give us chills. What will happen next when it's not the ground, but the sky over Japan itself that bursts into an eerie blue glow? 2. A jade-green fireball tears across Japan's sky. A strange green light ripped through the night sky over Japan in a flash. So quick, so powerful, you couldn't even brace yourself. Up above Kagoshima, near the Sakurajima volcano, a jade-green fireball shot across the darkness, leaving behind shaky videos and a wave of stunned silence. This wasn't something that dragged on for minutes. It was just a few seconds, but long enough to make the whole area hold its breath. From local news reports and early recordings, the fireball appeared way up high, moving at speeds of hundreds of miles an hour. That bright blue-green glow was caught from all kinds of angles, showing a trail that stretched dozens of miles before it faded away. No damage on the ground was reported, but the event grabbed everyone's attention with its odd color and a deep boom that echoed through the air. Nothing like the usual shooting stars we've seen before. Kagoshima isn't new to nature's wild side. The area has seen big earthquakes, volcano eruptions, and tsunamis in the past, when ocean water rose dozens of feet in no time. So this green fireball streaking overhead just added to that uneasy feeling, like nature keeps sending warnings we can't ignore. In the Bible, Luke 21:11 says, "There will be great signs from heaven, along with famines and plagues in many places, and frightening things too." That verse isn't meant as a scientific explanation, but it does remind us that sky events like this have long made people stop and think about the times we're living in. Still, astronomers were quick to weigh in with facts. They say it was most likely a small meteor hitting Earth's atmosphere, glowing from the friction with the air. The jade-green color probably came from metals like nickel or magnesium burning up at high heat. Some experts added that the rare angle and certain air conditions made it stand out more than usual. Those explanations make sense and are backed by science, but they don't fully erase that fragile feeling the site left behind. Because in Revelation 6:12, the Bible describes, "I watched as the Lamb opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like rough black cloth, and the moon turned red like blood." That's symbolic language, pointing out how upheavals in the sky and on Earth often come with big shifts in human history. Whether seen as a natural event or something with deeper meaning, that green fireball over Japan's sky left a quiet pause that's hard to describe. And when the heavens speak up with a strange light like that, the story doesn't seem over yet, especially with the ocean out there quietly building power for a massive whirlpool ready to rise up. 3. Giant whirlpool full of mystery on the ocean's surface. Can you believe your eyes when this video starts with a scene that has nothing to do with the calm of the ocean? Right from the first second, the frame shakes. The water swirls violently like a huge mouth opening up in the middle of the sea, and the person filming only has time to cry out in panic. What are we looking at here? A rare, natural event, or a moment when the ocean wakes up? The video was shot from a small cruise boat about 5 miles offshore, where you'd normally expect just gentle waves and steady wind. But right in front of you and me, the sea surface suddenly drops, forming a massive whirlpool with a bunch of smaller twisters spinning around it like satellites. The sound in the video isn't clear, but you can still hear a deep rumbling roar that seems to come from way down below, enough to give anyone chills. Later, news reports said this whirlpool was hundreds of feet across, with currents moving at around 20 miles an hour, strong enough to pull small boats off course. Some researchers compared it to the Naruto whirlpools in Japan, but admitted the size and power in this video were much bigger than what's usually seen. We're not looking at the familiar ocean anymore. It's a chaotic stage where water, wind, and pulling forces twist together like something alive. Here's where the